This episode is sponsored by Well Balanced Nutrition and 360 Health.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Well, hello. I've been reading a lot of books recently. Have you, Kristen?
Oh, yeah, summer reading.
Yeah, that summer reading list. And, you know, one of the things I've been thinking about since we've been at this for a few months now is I'm enjoying it. Are you?
I am, yes. We've taken in a lot of good, interesting information and a variety of books.
Yeah, and I think we're getting to know each other, which, you know, is kind of interesting. And we've met this podcasting guru that, you know, shepherds us through this technique.
Hello.
There he is. That's Tim over there. And we might pull him in on this a little bit too, because we want to just talk a little bit about the experience of maybe conceptual frameworks. We all come to a conversation or a table with some previous experience or some previous knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. But none of us know everything. And I think
we don't.
Yeah, well, hey, I thought I did until I started looking a little deeper and
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, well, since you brought it up, we were just listening to that clip from Madison.
Billy Madison, yes.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think Kristen and I might sometimes feel like, if you're listening to us, are we helping you or hurting you? So what was that quote? Do you?
Oh, yeah, I can play it.
Yeah, okay.
Please hold.
Yes, while we dial this up with all this new digital technology.
And so for reference, I was having a conversation with my husband last night, and we were talking about how some of the books have some fringe science in them, you know, some questionable things.
Yeah.
And so,
or things that cause him to question.
Things that cause him as a pulmonologist and an ICU physician.
A very well-educated professional.
Very well-educated professional to just stop and question. And this quote from Billy Madison popped into his mind.
Mr. Madison, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
So, you know, there's that other quote about if you may have, and I don't remember how it goes, but the thing about whether you think I'm dumb, but if I open my mouth, you'll know I am.
Oh, it's better to let people think that you're stupid than to open your mouth and prove them right.
Yeah. So we're going to, I think, couch our podcast maybe today with this kind of background, because we've been thinking about the area that we're going into, this body of literature. You know, when you're in some professional groups, it's definitely poo-pooed. It's like, that's just fluff. You know, it's not the real thing. And people that aren't trained like we are trained shouldn't be telling people much about what they think. So I don't know. I'm having fun exploring it, though, and I want to continue to keep reading some of these authors that spent. I mean, some of these books, they take 10 years to pull their data together. You know.
Yeah, it's no small feat to write a book, and a lot of these books that we've read have a lot of references.
Yeah.
They've taken a lot of time, devoted years of their life to create it. So, you know, the last thing I want to do is, you know, bash somebody for that feat. And then at the same time, we do take this information and filter it through
what we know and
understand.
Yeah.
And hopefully try to convey that to you and help you, the listener out there, to know if you want to read the book or get some tidbits from the book, or
and I think
get to know me and Eleanor.
Yeah. And I think that's what attracted me to the conversation, is the provocative nature of it, because it's not a done deal. You know, this is in debate, and I like debate. So, and I think open debate is good for all of us to hear new ideas. I mean, we can get, you know, in a same think group, and we don't see something that's important.
Right.
So I think it's always good to remain open, but again, critical. And I think some of our authors have talked about how to evaluate information, and I always appreciate that when they bring it into their conversation, because you can have references, but if they're not quality references or they're not interpreted appropriately, you still have some room for error. But that's one of the reasons that I kind of insist each time we open a book that in our podcast we talk about who is the author, what is their background, where have they, what's led them to this, and then what publisher or how did the thing get into print, and then do they have references? Could you track down their ideas and what took them to their thought process? So I still think I want to continue doing that, and I don't mean to belabor the process, but I just want to be careful as we open each podcast episode that we take a little time to share that with our audience.
Well, one thing that I like about the way you guys do this is you especially, Eleanor, because you are an analytical mind and you like data. You like, where did they get this information from? Mm-hmm. And you're not just, well, they said this, so it must be true. Yeah. And you're like, what in the world are you, where did they get that? And then you're like, oh, I see where they got that. I don't see it the same way. Or, okay. Or whatever, but that's one of the good things. And Kristen, your knowledge in the food aspect of it, not all the books that you guys do are about food, but you're not all about food. I mean, that's right. There's more to you than that. You're not one dimensional. But so that's why I think this podcast works well. Not because I'm sitting here manning the controls and making it work, but because, if you're not here adding the content and I'm sitting here just moving buttons, no one's listening to that because it's just a bunch of silence. Yeah. So you're both bringing different perspectives from different angles. Mm-hmm. That's kind of redundant, but from different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I like about the way you guys do this. And I never feel dumber from listening to it. I always feel, thank God I don't have to read that.
And that's what we're hoping to do for you.
Yeah, because I've said it before, I hate reading. Uh-huh. So I'm sitting here looking at you guys waving these books, and I'm like getting anxiety about it. I'm like, oh, God. I mean, the fact that there are bookmarks and notes and, I want to talk about this page. And let me tell the audience that they really are diving in. It's not just let's BS our way through this. And if they are doing that, I don't know it. I'm sitting right here with them in the same room. So I dig it.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Yeah.
One of the things that I think is been fun for me, though, is in reading these books, when I'm out in my world, when I leave this little room with you two, I find these ideas and these books perking their way into my conversations. Have you run into that at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah? You want to share anything, or you want me to?
Go first.
Okay, I'll go first because I'm really excited. No, the self-compassion book, it was so funny. I kind of thought that was a foo-foo book, and yet I was really glad I'd read it. And I thought her openness and about her personal journey, particularly with her son, was really an interesting story that she shared. But that idea of self-compassion and self-esteem and self-appreciation is something I continued to think about after we were talking about it. And I was on a Zoom meeting. I'm in a group of people from all over the United States and actually Australia and a few other countries as well. We get together every week and talk about things related to our business. But I got a note from one of the producers of that business thing, and he was beating himself up. And he said, I'm so glad that you mentioned self-compassion because I needed to remember that I'm human. We all make mistakes. And I mean, he was ranting and raving about this thing, and I just interjected, calm down, why are you, you screwed up. Yeah. We all screw up.
Right.
And
being human is hard.
Right. And like for me, I left a pocketbook at a coffee shop, and I didn't think about it for 2 days. And then when I realized it had my life in it, mm-hmm. I had my cell phone, but it had my credit cards and da-da-da. I'm sitting there going, you stupid idiot. How could you do that? How old are you? Don't you know to, take care of your possessions and keep them with you? Blah, 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 blah. And we all can run into that negative thought quickly. What he had done, had planned this very expensive trip to Bora Bora or something, some exotic location for his family. And they looked at the passports, but they didn't they knew one of them was out of date, forgot to look at the other ones. And then like the day before they leave, they figure, we got a passport that's no good. Can you imagine how upset you would be with yourself?
Oh, I have a story to tell along those lines.
Oh, okay. And you know what? You can't do anything about it except love yourself.
Right.
You just got to love yourself. And they turned some gyrations and ended up taking a holiday in the United States and minimized their financial loss. But the idea is, even the best among us do some really dumb things and know better. Right. So that, having read the self-compassion book, though, I was able to offer to this person a reminder of that if I hadn't read the book, I wouldn't have thought to say.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
And then he took the time to reach back out to me personally and say, I needed that. And so that was worth it. That's totally worth it. Now, what's your story?
Well, speaking of passports, so we recently went on a trip to St. Lucia.
Yeah.
And we did get our passports in time. It was kind of cutting it close. But with the COVID restrictions, there were certain things we had to do. I knew we had to get our negative COVID test, and I knew that we had to kind of go online and print out this attestation and everything. So we show up to the airport really early in the morning, and it's like 6 o'clock.
Good thing, huh? Good thing you got there early.
And they're like, oh, I've never seen a form that is handwritten. Let me check with my manager. And they come back and they're like, no, you needed to submit all that online and then print out the form that they give you from there. So we're on our cell phones trying to do this. And I'm like,
were you sweating?
You can imagine the self-talk and the frustration that's going in my head. You're so stupid. Why did you wait? Why didn't you do this?
It's just so simple, and you couldn't even do this simple thing.
Yes. So, we were scrambling to do it, and Dustin got his first, and then I got mine 5 minutes before the plane took off. And lo and behold, we did not get to go that day. So we had to go back home with their bags still packed. Luckily, they let us hop on the plane the next day without charging us anymore. We tried to push our vacation back, but that would have cost like $1,200, $1,400 extra dollars. So we missed out on a day of vacation, and thanks to self-compassion and some hard work in my head, I got over it. But you can imagine I was beating myself up.
Right.
A lot at first.
Yeah, and that's the extreme of that. But are you glad you read the book? I mean, did it come to you as somewhere close to that experience
yes, and
that you could tap into that?
Before that book, I've been trying to practice self-compassion, and the book is really helpful in reminding us that we're all human, and there's no point in being that mean to yourself.
Well, and that voice, that exercise she had where you put yourself in your best friend talking to you in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was showing my friend was, you can hear this from me, but you need to hear it from yourself. And so did you talk to yourself like a friend would? Or did it take a long time before you got to the friendship thing?
Yeah. I just tried to tell myself to not be mean. And I tell my daughter that. I've noticed at night that when she gets tired, she beats herself up.
Yeah.
Like if I say, come on, we need to be done reading and get up into bed. And if she doesn't do it right away, I'm like, Allie, come on. And she's like, oh, I'm so bad. And she's like hitting herself in the head and calling her names. And I said, you need to be nice to yourself, little lady.
Yeah.
And I've said that like so many times.
Good.
So hopefully I'm planting the seed of self-compassion in her too.
Yes, I think so. And that made me think of an experience with one of my grandsons when he hit one of his siblings. And then all of a sudden he just panicked and he said, I'm so mean, I'm so awful. Why did I, we all strike out at times, but I was impressed with his ability to recognize he'd done it, but I was concerned about him being so rough on himself for having done it. And that's sort of what you're talking about your daughter. It's like, well, you can notice that then I think that's another thing that she was talking about in the book is notice it, but maybe not react as strongly to the deficiency or the thing that's upsetting.
Well, knowing is half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
So if you realize, man, that was dumb, I should not have done that. That's different than flipping out and hitting yourself and being depressed for the rest of the day and not being sociable and all those other things that come with that. But realizing that it is, because it's one thing if you're just quote unquote a mean person. Mm-hmm. It's another thing if you realize, like you said, we're human. We have bad days. We're allowed bad days,
and we do mean things sometimes.
Yeah. And as long as you are able to atone for said things, doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Exactly.
You're a good person that happened to do something that was less than a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's the key with self-compassion, is that you did a bad thing, you're not a bad person.
Exactly, yeah. And
so
that book went on for a while for me.
What about Food Fix? You said that
that's been fun because I've had conversation. That was such a angry book, I think, because he was taking on everybody. He was taking on, this was Mark Hyman.
Correct.
Food Fix. And he took on Big Pharma, Big Ag, and the government and said, they're all against us. Right. And this is why. And we need to open our eyes and pay attention, which I think he made a convincing story is, we should be looking at some of this stuff. So it just seems like I get excited about the book, so I bring them up in my little conversations, and people say, I've worried about that too, or I had this experience. The pharmaceutical is one that's easy to get to because, some people have bad experiences with some pharmaceutical side effects. So, and then the gut book, The Healthy Gut, that was another one that people have been talking about. And I hear it. Maybe I hear it now because I've read the book. They say something about my gut's off, and I, don't know what to do about it. And I'm thinking I'm going to eat some kombucha. So, I told you guys, I just have this thing about kombucha.
Did you try it?
I was like, I don't know. And I went on a walk with this lady, and she said, oh yeah, I've got a SCOBY and I build all this stuff, because I'm asking people, do you drink this stuff? What do you think about it? And many people are drinking this stuff. And I thought, what's wrong with me? Why do I have such a psychological hesitation? And so I bought this bottle like a month ago. I took a picture of it, put it on Facebook and said, here it is. And this morning I said, oh my gosh, I can't go to this recording session and not having opened this bottle. So I opened it and I took a picture of it and posted it. And I thought, I'm going to have to taste it. So I poured a little glass. And I got this one called Gingerberry Kombucha. And I poured a little bit of it. And I had it before I had anything to eat, which I thought was probably a really bad idea because if I get diarrhea here, we're going to be in trouble. But so I drank this stuff and it was really quite good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was very flavorful. I'm going to finish the bottle, I think. It had a little fizzy to it, and it had the nice ginger overtone with some berry. Mm-hmm. So it was a little bit like drinking fizzy vinegar or something, but, hey, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So those are my stories.
Well, real quick. Yeah. So Spark has stuck with me because exercise, and we just did a joyful movement challenge with Well Balanced Nutrition.
Wonderful.
Where we encourage people to think of, it's so often like I should exercise for my health or for weight loss, but when we think about all of the fun stuff. So Spark really came to life there, and just the other benefits that come from exercise, and focusing on those short-term benefits will help you want to do it more. So the other thing was the forest bathing, because I've really had a good appreciation of like the birds chirping when I go outside, because I think of how he was saying that that's on the same wavelength. Mm-hmm. And so I just noticed that so much more since reading that book. And then when we went on a vacation to St. Lucia, we went into the...
Kit looked beautiful from the pictures. I was saying, she's forest bathing the whole time.
Yeah, so much fresh air and being outside. And we went to a volcano area where we got to get in a mineral bath, which smelled terrible.
Yeah, and we talked about this when we reviewed that book. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was good. Got our bare feet in there and rubbed this.
So you had all this, the sensory perception engaged.
That's right.
Your eyes, your ears, your skin, your smell.
Absolutely.
Taste. I saw you drinking a waterfall.
We didn't. It was an illusion, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, Dustin actually tasted the water on accident, and he said it tasted like a rusty nail. So
Lovely.
Yeah. Well, our point is we have several books that we reviewed in our podcast. And if you haven't listened to all of them, you might enjoy, because maybe you'll have a similar reaction and be able to influence your conversations in your circle of connections to better health and wellness and ideas of how to attain that. And experiment with some of this stuff.
And you heard our stories. We want to hear your stories. Tell us about the ways that these books or our podcast have influenced your day-to-day life. And we'd love to share them on the podcast and just know, how our voices are making a difference or not for you. We'd just love to hear from you. So check out our Facebook page,
The Health Geeks Book Club Podcast.
And you can connect with us that way. And we really love to hear from you.
Or you can connect with Kristen at
wellbalancednutrition.com.
And I'm Eleanor at 360health, 4u.com. We'd love to talk to you about wellness and staying that way.
That's right. Well, thanks for listening to our Chit-Chat today. We hope you have a wonderful day. And until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy reading.
The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.